Welcome to Brake Check. I'm Brian.
I'm Craig.
And today we're going to talk about the 21 Mustang Mach-E. Now, as you can see over our shoulder here, we've done a quick review on this before. You're welcome to look at that now if you haven't already seen it. But we recently had this thing for a week from Ford, and we got to real world test it, which we were not able to do on the first review.
Right.
And full transparency, I was a little bit harsh on it initially because I really didn't get to know the car. And I think I've come around on it a little bit, and we'll get to that as we go through it. But Craig, you took it on a road trip, which has been the big question for us. We live in Texas. We do a lot of trips that are over 300 miles. And what do you do with that in an EV? Because the rated range on this one was 270, the one that we had. It was an all-wheel drive with the extended range. But its usable mileage was not that, because once you get beyond 80%, it's hard to recharge beyond 80 on a road trip because of the recharge time. So I want to get into that. We're going to do a proper hipster technical review. We've got coffee for that. And I want to get into how did it work for you on that trip. So let's get into some of the stats.
Real world, my commute.
Right.
I've got a 240 volt charger, so I get to take advantage of that. I didn't need any Electrify. I'm not going to use Electrify America because most people are going to buy this car. They're going to go to work and back. I've got a really long commute, but it's got the range.
Right.
What does it cost to drive 123 miles round trip through hills and highway? What does it cost? Our rates here in Texas are 11 cents a kilowatt hour, so we're pretty fortunate for that. National average is 13 cents, so it won't be too different. But it cost me $5 to go 123 miles.
So round trip, $5.
$5.
What does that same trip cost you in the most comparable Ford Edge?
In the most comparable Ford Edge, assuming I get the highway mileage that it's at, it cost me $13.17.
Okay, so now,
so basically the Mach-E is 38% of the cost of the Ford Edge.
So it's 62% cheaper than the Ford Edge?
Yeah.
That's
so over half the cost. So
yeah.
Here's the crazy thing though, Brian. I drive a economy car, a Mazda 2, that gets about 35 miles a gallon.
Right.
It's half as cheap as that. That little car getting 35 miles a gallon cost me $10.50.
Okay, so
Mach-E only cost me $5.
I'm glad you brought this up because when I first did the charging station at Electrify America, I thought to myself, this costs as much as a gas car does. What are we doing? The argument of I'm going, because you've got a few reasons why you would buy an electric, right? You've got the green aspect, you've got the cheap aspect, or you've got it's just a dragster in the shape of a crossover aspect. Performance-wise. I immediately went, well, the cheaper aspect is gone, but I was wrong about that because we realize now after using it more, if you own this car and you plug it in, you're going to plug it in your house. You're not going to go to the Electrify America unless you were out and about and you happen to see one, or you're on a trip and you plan your stops.
Right.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Now, my daily commute is 30 miles each way, so you can just cut all those numbers down even more. I want to compare it to something else. We're in Texas, we like trucks. An F-150 on your drive will get like 18, give or take. So it's going to cost what? 3 times as much?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, man, I'm getting more impressed with the more we're talking about it. That's all I'm saying.
And so that leads us into the road trip.
Road trip. Please tell us about that. What did you do? What did you see? And how did it perform for you?
So we had a crazy idea. I told you I was thinking about going out to West Texas to hike Guadalupe Mountain.
Which, ironically, is the oil fields of West Texas.
Oil fields of West Texas. And the highest peak in Texas is the Guadalupe Mountains National Park. We decided, hey, my daughter and I were going to go, let's go hike that.
And
I told you, I was like, man, look at the Mach-E. I can't take it for a road trip. And you're like, no, you should try it.
You should. I pushed you on this.
I
pushed you hard on this.
I don't know about that. So
it took 3 days to talk you into it.
So I started looking at the map because here's one of the logistical problems of a road trip in an electric vehicle. You got to check where are these charging stations.
Right.
The good news is I was staying out in Van Horn, which is right off I-20.
Okay.
And
on the grid.
There's a lot of charging stations along the way.
Right.
And they're at Walmarts mostly. There's also a Sonic.
There's no shortage of Walmarts and Sonics.
So there was Sweetwater, Midland, Pecos, and Van Horn. Those are my stops. They're all within 200 miles of each other.
Okay. So your operating range was 200 miles, not 270.
Because I go 80% of the 270.
Okay, let me ask you this. How long would it have taken you in a gas car to do that trip?
About six and a half hours.
Door to door?
Well, just driving.
But you're going to have to get a gas stop because the range is not enough. How many miles is that drive?
It's 400. It's about 500.
Okay, so a lot of gas cars aren't going to get that in one hit. So plan on one gas stop.
One gas stop.
So
stopping for lunch.
So call it 6.5 hours, maybe 7, depending on how long.
Probably 7 with lunch and stuff like that. Yeah.
You were forced to stop in the EV. What was your run time? And now you worked in your meals and your bathroom breaks at these stops.
Right.
But you didn't take any unplanned stops.
I did not.
What did your time end up being in the EV?
8 hours.
So it's about an hour longer.
Took me an hour longer.
Okay, but look, you and I, we drink coffee. We got to pee sometimes. I don't think that writes the vehicle off for that. Is what I'm getting at.
Agreed, and I was surprised with that. I really thought it was going to take me longer to charge, but what happened is I stop at each charging station and I get it to 80%. As soon as it's 80%, let's go.
Right. Before we get off road trip,
Yep.
tell me about cost.
Okay, cost. So Electrify America, we kept track of how much it cost each time we charged for the entire trip. So it was an entire trip was a 1,000-mile round trip.
Okay.
We spent $111 or 11 cents a mile.
Okay. That's better than I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. What would that be in the Edge ICE engine all-wheel drive?
Ford Edge all-wheel drive at $3 a gallon right now.
Yeah, in our area.
Right around 13 cents a mile. If it was all highway and you didn't use just the combined rating, maybe 12 cents a mile.
Okay.
So
about
a little bit more, but not much. I was shocked because one of the things about a road trip in one of these, everybody says, yeah, but if you road trip it, it's not going to save money.
Right.
You still saved a little bit of money in this thing compared to the
that caught me off guard because I was telling you before you left, this will cost you more on the road trip. And I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong.
I was shocked by that.
Yeah.
Then compared to an F-150 getting 21 EPA rating, which good luck getting 21 in any full-size truck.
Well, and at that speed, you're talking 18, 17.
But that would have been 15 cents a mile.
Okay.
Now, here's where it gets tricky.
So almost like 40% more for a truck.
Here's where it gets tricky. A hybrid still makes a lot of sense because you don't have the charging problem, but you still have electricity helping you out.
Right.
A Ford Escape hybrid, kept it in the Ford family for this one, would have been 8 cents a mile.
Oh, wait. Okay, hang on. That's interesting.
Yeah. So now all of a sudden you're like, okay, see, I knew this wasn't that great, right?
Yeah, on the surface, yeah.
But there's one wild card, a little asterisk next to that 11 cents a mile I told you earlier. We weren't using the membership with Electrify America. If you're an owner, here's what you're going to do. For $4 a month, just $4 a month.
Flat.
With Electrify America, and you can cancel just like a Netflix subscription or something like that.
Month to month if you want to.
You go on a road trip, you get the $4 a month subscription for Electrify America. They reduced your rate by 25%.
Okay.
Now that road trip would have only cost me 8 cents a mile.
So it's right there with the hybrid again.
Right there with the hybrid. It's just as efficient as the hybrid, even on a road trip charging at a station.
Look, I'm not Mr. Conspiracy Theory, but I do find it awfully convenient that someone else has done this math and made sure that that argument was solved with, oh, you're going on the road trip? We've got a fix for that. We're going to bring that down. But look, that's an infrastructure question, which arguably is the biggest holdup on EV. Infrastructure is not by and large like petroleum is currently.
Right.
It was hard to get petroleum up and running. It's going to be hard to get EV up and running at the amount of energy needed. In fact, a fast DC charger station is about 50 grand a pop in most areas. We've talked to EVTS about this, a bunch of other EV companies. I'm just going to say it. There will be a point in time when you pull into a big Buc-ee's gas station, there's going to be a row of EV chargers. And it's just going to take time, but it'll get there. Now, if I may, unless I missed something.
No, you're good. That's a road trip.
I want to ask you the question about the biggest question on my mind, and this is taking into account that engineering-wise, EVs are simpler. There's no pistons, there's no rods, there's no combustion chambers, there's no shoving petroleum and oxygen and lighting it on fire to make twisting energy.
So you're talking about energy loss.
Energy loss, yeah. Well, I'm talking about energy loss and simplicity of engineering in terms of upkeep and maintenance for an owner. There's no oil change involved, right? You rotate tires, you brake, that kind of stuff, shocks, that kind of stuff. But is EV really the future? Is it really viable?
I think it's a huge part of the future.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the final, complete, only answer, but it's a big chunk. And we'll get into energy density here in a minute, but I mean, that's one of the issues with it. It works for passenger vehicles. It's a big chunk of it.
Okay. This is what my takeaway was when I was done driving this. I really, in fact, weeks after, I keep thinking back on it. For almost every person I know, this is a viable vehicle for them.
Oh yeah.
And if you're a long distance hauler, that's not going to do it for you.
Right.
If you're road tripping routinely, it's probably not the best choice, although we've proven it's doable. Its biggest drawbacks are if you're out of a major metro area or if you're off a major interstate, charging is going to be, you got to really think about that and get that figured out. But that's kind of it.
Yeah.
That's kind of it, because around town, I'll tell you right now, if you've been to Los Angeles on a hot summer afternoon and you can't see more than a mile through the sky, that I want this idling on the 10 traffic. I don't want a car emitting fumes at the back of it. That's where these make a ton of sense. And Ford, they've done a good job making this one interesting. It's not trying to look silly and be like, oh, look at me, I'm green. It's just a good looking crossover that happens to be electric, and that's where the Lightning's going to go. And I'm really excited about that.
And so that's you mentioned the energy loss and the efficiency. That's where these make sense. in a passenger car, the thing that's great about gasoline, and one of the things we're excited about, is there's a possible carbon neutral synthetic fuel solution.
Right.
Porsche's working on it.
Yep, it's gonna be awesome.
Here's a problem with Porsche's fuel right now. It costs about $38 a gallon.
Yeah,
it's not gonna work.
Not really viable. But let's be honest though, there's a lot of infrastructure propping going on by governments for EV networks.
Sure.
You can prop synthetic fluid as well, or fuel as well. So I could see it happening if it, I mean, it sounds really complicated, but we don't know enough about that to talk about it here. But that's interesting to me. For the gearhead that wants to keep the exhaust crackle going on, that can still happen.
And the reason gas still makes sense and diesel still makes sense, that density of that fuel tank for what you get out of it, you get a lot of range and power out of this, not a whole lot of space.
Right.
Versus a battery vehicle.
It's a whole floorboard.
A lot of space. It's not efficient as far as density goes.
Yeah.
But transmitting that energy to the drive wheels, that's what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
There's only about 10% loss energy transfer with this versus a gas motor. At least 50% or more is being lost in refining drivetrain.
Before it gets to the car.
Yeah, before it even gets to the car, and then when it gets to the car.
And also, when it comes off the flywheel and then goes through differentials and changes direction, you lose 15% usually on cars.
Yeah.
Just from flywheel to tire. All right, Craig, here's a big question. This is just an EV general question. Is it green? Because a lot of the gearheads out there go, oh, wait a minute, you got to refine the battery. And a long time ago, Jeremy Clarkson declared that a Land Rover Defender was as green as a Prius based on the acid rain situation with old batteries in Canada. And I get it. We've come a long way, though. That's not happening anymore. But is it green today?
So that's a great question, and that's where it gets really a little murkier and a little tricky. The bottom line is yes. But what needs to be factored and considered is, at least in our state, if you're plugging that thing in at home, it's coming from a natural gas plant, most likely.
Yeah, on that.
And there's a lot of carbon emission there. You've got some numbers on that, 25%. And
so in terms of, at least in the state of Texas, we're referring to our region, green energy accounts for 13% of the state's energy resources. So when you plug it into the wall, it's 13% green, which means what you're getting out of the wall is actually gray energy.
Right.
So I just want to wipe it across the floor right now, and this drives me nuts actually. People go, oh, well, I'm saving the planet because I bought an EV. You're helping the planet, but it's not. We're not green enough yet, infrastructure-wise.
Here's the thing: are EVs better for the environment than a gas and an ICE?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
the answer is yes.
Are they the only solve? No.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
If everybody drove an electric vehicle tomorrow, it doesn't solve the energy problem.
No, we still have an energy problem. We still have a carbon problem, and that's what drives me nuts. Is there's a lot actually.
It's a part of the solution.
There's a lot of media coming around from our cohorts and a lot of outlets, big outlets, saying that EV is the solve. It's not the solve.
It's a big part.
It's a big part to it. And I'm not saying I'm anti-EV. I just want to be clear, it's not the only thing we can be doing.
Very good point.
Now, we've said a lot about EVs. I want to wrap up just particular to the car.
Yes.
What do you think about it? Because we have lived with it. I've already alluded that I enjoy it, and I do enjoy it. What's your take on it? How do you feel about it? Is it something that you consider for yourself even, or what's your take on the car?
Here's the magic of the Mach-E. We learned on the road trip and driving it to work and back. The magic of the Mach-E is, and we talked about the competition a little bit, if you want to go buy an electric vehicle tomorrow and it's a regular car for regular tasks, hauling kids around, getting groceries, going to work and back, there's not a whole lot of options out there, especially if you want to go to a dealer and get dealer service and things like that.
Okay, yeah.
There's the Tesla world, but the Model 3 is the only incomparable, and that's a smaller vehicle.
And there's not a dealer network you can
There's not a dealer network.
There's service centers and that kind of stuff, but you have to go through an app or call someone.
There's a Model Y, but it's double the price.
Yeah, way more expensive.
There's a bunch of other EVs coming out soon, Toyota, Subaru, and a bunch of other people. There's the Hyundai Ioniq 5's coming out soon that looks cool.
Yeah, a lot of stuff in the pipeline looking cool. Yeah.
Lots of stuff coming, but they're all about the same range as this.
Yeah.
If you want an electric vehicle that gets 300 miles range and is in the $50,000 mark and doesn't look stupid and actually is functional, this is it. There's nothing else. There's nothing else out there.
So really what you're saying, my real question was, is it any good? And you're saying yes.
Yes.
Because a few things I keep coming back on is you talk about range. We're seeing concept cars claiming this thing's range. It's already here.
And they're bragging about it. This already has
It's already doing it.
Yeah.
So hats off to Ford.
Yep.
We can complain about the name all you want.
Sure.
That's fine.
Wish it didn't have Mustang. Sure.
Sure, me too. Call it the Mach-E, take the Mustang part off. That's fine. But if they had not named it Mustang, we wouldn't be giving it the attention we are. It was a marketing stunt and it worked.
Yep.
And I'm going to wrap it up there. I think I'm impressed. As the gasoline gearhead, I'm impressed with it. I'm happy with what Ford has done with it. And more importantly, the biggest game changer for the EV world, I'm going to say it right now, is going to be the Ford Lightning. Because the F-150 is the #1 selling vehicle on the planet. And if anyone can solve a problem through volume of sales, it's going to be Ford with the 150. They're going to fix the infrastructure for a lot of people. And it's going to benefit other automakers too. So I'm excited about that. Just like aluminum bodies on the truck, they've made it mainstream. And look, if you have a utility company, that's going to make a lot of sense too, because you plug in your plumbing truck at night, you never go to the gas station. Kind of makes sense. So I think that's good. You want to wrap it there?
I think that's it. There's nothing else to it. 80% is the key. And the range is still 200 miles with that, and that's why this works.
Yeah, and look, our buddies at GT Garage Talk had a Mach-E and did a similar trip and didn't plan it quite as well and had some more stops. And their only complaint was, man, if I had a usable 300 miles, it would have solved their particular route.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's the last little hurdle. There's a little gap we're having to jump over right now, and that's the range factor. This has gotten really close, and for most people, it's solved the range factor.
But 5 years ago, this was concept pipe dream stuff, and they've made it happen.
But once we cracked that, we've cracked the 200 basically. Once you start cracking the 250, 300 at 80%.
Usable.
Now all of a sudden, you're the same as a gas car. You're going to stop and get gas between them anyways.
That's the last apology for the EV.
That's it.
All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check us out on BrakeCheckShow.com and hit the like button if you like EVs, or if you don't.
Save a puppy.
Save a puppy. Thanks for watching. Bye. I don't know where to go with that.